So what you serve in a situation like this, it's called a notice of hearing on request for order shortening time. And so I never knew, you know, that was pretty quick, but he was willing to listen to the case that day, and so I went and we served the defendant, showed up later that day, and that day the registrar was actually retiring. It was her retirement party, and that's where she was. And then the Yolo County registrar was out at the registrar's retirement party, and they were on the phone. And so in the hearing, the judge, the counsel for the registrar, and remember it's the counsel, the attorneys who are arguing for the registrar, they were prepared on the 27th. This hearing, new hearing, was on the 29th. And the counsel claimed that the case would be prejudiced because they were not prepared. And again, this was a new judge, and so he wasn't aware about the 27th, and I pointed that out to the judge. I said, Your Honor, I said, the case is not prejudiced because they're already prepared. Nothing has changed. It would be exactly the same argument that it was opposing the writ of mandate. And the judge, again, as a retired judge told me, he said the judge sided with the government, and he dismissed without prejudice. And so think about that. Why would you schedule a hearing that same day? You know the defendant is going to do everything to oppose it, and then when the defendant says, I'm not prepared, but yet we know 2 days in advance he was, why would the judge just say, okay, I'm not going to hear it, and he dismissed it? And so I went back again, and in the process I thought it was too late. I thought there's no way that, we're past the 29th, and so I went to the Secretary of State and found out, I wanted to hear from the counsel. I asked if I could speak to the counsel, but someone did come out and told me, you can challenge it beyond the 29th, and I appreciated that information. And I want to share something, by the way, that an attorney, an elections attorney who was working with me, he spoke to the Secretary of State's attorney. And maybe I should be giving names, but I'm not. But he spoke to the Secretary of State's attorney, and this is what his email was to me when he spoke to the Secretary of State after my second hearing. He said, I had a hearing yesterday afternoon, and the Secretary of State's office was there. I heard what happened, and for what it's worth, the Secretary of State's attorney was surprised at the outcome because he, like me, has seen judges consider a case under similar circumstances. So in other words, the judge still, again, like the first one, could have heard the case. Most judges in these cases are very patient with self-represented parties. As far as the procedural rules are concerned, they are frequently ignored by judges who try harder in these cases to get the right outcome based on the underlying legal principles rather than the procedural ones. So in other words, instead of on those technicalities about serving and doing this, they're more interested, and I would just refer it to the jurisprudence, to doing the what's fair and just, that they're looking at the legal principles rather than procedural ones. This happens so frequently because of the timing of these cases. Again, there's a small window that's given to candidates to be able to take this to court. There is no practical right to appeal because even, well, anyway, he went on to something else as I was looking at this. And so once again, twice the judges sided with the government and they didn't listen to the writ of mandate, which was, I was going to be able to prove where there were lies that were said. And even as I said, this retired judge who was looking at it, when he was looking at the defendant's, the registrar's counsel comment in the argument opposing the writ of mandate, in his very words, he said, that's a lie. He was reading what they wrote, and they were misrepresenting truth, and I wanted to be able to prove that, but the judge wouldn't permit it. So I went in again, and because what happened is I thought it was too late, and that it was too late, the ballots are going to be printed, I don't have any recourse, and so I started researching more and more, and I realized, you know what, we can push this further. The Secretary of State, a person there, said you can push it further. So what I did is I had somebody who used to, I've got to use pronouns here because I don't want to expose anyone, but there was somebody who was aware. We discovered where the printer, the company that's printing the ballots, and the person went there. What we discovered, we had inside source, and we discovered the ballots were not printed. And I need to let you know something that's pertinent. What I did during that time is I went and I appealed to many of the senators and to assembly people and chief of staff, in the GOP, asking, letting them know I'm the only Republican running, and they've kept me off the ballot, and this whole process has been marred. And so then I also went to Deputy County Executive David Villanueva, and he's the Deputy County Executive and under the Sacramento County Administration. So this department oversees the registrar. I let him know that there's a lawsuit that's happening right now that I should be on the ballot, and we are pushing this, and I have another court hearing, and I'm going to tell you about the third court hearing, give you detail on that. But the bottom line is they knew what was happening, and so I believe that's why the ballots weren't printed yet. We recognized that the ballots weren't printed yet. We knew that they hadn't been printed yet, and so I went into the judge on April 10th. So now we are back about 10 days from that 29th mark, and this is what I wrote. I said, "Dear Honorable Judge," and I'll spare his name, "please consider giving me an earlier date, considering the defendant has already prepared their opposition. There is no room for either the plaintiff or defendant's case to be prejudiced, since the facts are straightforward. The defendant has been prepared since March 21st, and 30 minutes is ample time for the hearing." And what happened actually is when I went in for the third time, the judge gave me a hearing. And the hearing that he gave me was scheduled for, he put it out to, let's see, oh, well, I'm gonna have to skip that. The bottom line, I went in on a Tuesday to hear my case. Oh, here it is. The interest of the people hear my case this Friday. Okay, so I went in on Tuesday, and that was actually on was it the 9th or 10th, and the judge pushed my court hearing back to the following week on the 20th, and he violated an elections code. And when I go more into the broader to show you where he violated that elections code, but he should have given me a hearing that Friday when I went on Tuesday. Now remember, previously he gave me the hearing the very same day. So he could have given it to me that same day, a short hearing. He could have given it to me the following day. All I was asking is hear it Friday. Because even though the defendant is already prepared, we'll give everyone a heads up here. We have it on, I'm here on Tuesday filing, so let's have it the next Friday. The judge pushed it back all the way to the following Friday, which really indicted him, because the very first thing, and that's what I'll elaborate a little bit later, he started to argue on the side of the respondent saying, we're way too far, this is too late. Now again, the ballots weren't printed, and he added 10 days. Wait, and the ballots still weren't printed. Think if we had the hearing then. I mean, there was ample time to hear my case and to put me on the ballot, but instead he violated an elections code, pushed the hearing back. I went in on that following Friday. We went in, and the very first thing, and then by the way, when I spoke to a retired judge who's actually running for the Attorney General, and he told me, as I was speaking to him and he was looking at my case, I said, you know what's going to happen is the judge he just pushed it back, and what he's going to do is he's going to deny my writ of mandate, and he's going to argue that we're already past it, already too late. And the retired judge told me, he said, that would not be logical, because there's no point for the judge to set another hearing if he feels that it's too late. But that's exactly what he did when he came in. In fact, the judge started to argue for the respondent, and that pointed that out to him. I said, Your Honor, I said, you're arguing for the respondent. And so that's what took place. The bottom line is this whole election process has been marred. District 6, the election in District 6 has been marred. The people know it. There's a lot of people who are aware, not just in the district, not just in the state, not just in the nation, but worldwide, who are watching this. they see that we've got fraud that is going rampant, and so the people we're suspect. You know, what is going on in District 6 where a candidate can be cheated, and nobody is standing up for the candidate, not even the GOP. They were nowhere to be around. They didn't even come to the hearing, because had they come to the hearing, they would have seen the election code violations. So now I'm going to start to elaborate. And so that was a little long still, but that's the shorter version. But I want to point out the election code violations and the errors that were committed by the registrar, and also the lies that were spoken. So first I'm going to share the errors that were committed by the registrar, and I do believe these were errors. They weren't deliberate lies. But in the declaration in support of opposition to the writ of mandate I submitted, on the very first, or on the 24th line is their second statement. It says that that I was given the option of receiving a CD of our candidate guide, but I opted to go online instead. And the truth of the matter is I do have a CD. And the only way I can get that CD is by, when I pay the fee, I get a CD. And so, and the point I'm making is the people, there was a young gal who was helping me, there was errors that were going on, and one I can just, it's very obvious for you to even to conclude it. There's no question about it on the other error. But so I did have a CD. They claimed I did not have a CD. And then the other thing that I want to point out is, since we can hand in up to 60 signatures, of course that's what we're going to leave. And it's the registrar's job to count the signatures and then to give them back, you know, anything in excess of 60. Well, when I got an email, it says, Mr. Bennett, after submitting everything, it says, in verifying the nomination signatures that you submitted on 3/9/2018, we find the following: 59 raw signature count. So the point I'm making is the registrar couldn't even count to 60. I mean, of course you understand. It's like if you're batting. I mean, do you want 3 opportunities to have 3 strikes so you can hit the ball, or are you going to reduce it to 2? And basically, what they did is they miscounted. And so again, here we have the registrar that's supposed to be counting our votes, and they can't even count up to 60. And then said the valid signatures that I had were 36. And again, the reason I only have 36 is they refuse to count signatures that they already validated and verified, these signatures. It would have been very easy to fix. It would have been fair, because we all crossed the finish line together with the other candidates, and I had all the requirements in. All they had to do is say, okay, we made a mistake. We gave these back to you, and we made a mistake, but we gave you a few pages back. We're not going to take the others, in fairness to everyone, because who's to say you didn't go out and get those signatures, but we know you didn't do it with that one page, this page, because our officer signed it, examined and certified being there before the 9th. And so the election code violations. So there was multiple election code violations, not committed just by the registrar, but also committed by the Superior Court judges.